This happened 2 years ago, Halloween night, 2023. I'm 25 now, but back then, I was 22. That day had already drained me completely. I'd spent hours at a local community event, a big Halloween festival we put together for families. My job involves organizing community activities, so I'm used to it, but even for me, that night was exhausting. We had games, costume contests, and even a kids versus parents dodgeball match. It was fun, but I was ready to collapse by the time it ended. When I finally got home, I'd just started to unwind when my little sister, Savannah, called me. She wanted me to take her and my nephew, Jackson, trick-or-treating because, apparently, no one else in the family wanted to go. It wasn't the first time I'd been the cool big brother, so I sighed, threw on some clothes, and drove over to my parents' house to pick them up. Savannah, 15 at the time, was dressed as Raven from Teen Titans, full costume, white makeup, everything. Jackson, 11, was Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. Once Savannah finished getting ready, we piled into my car and drove to one of the livelier neighborhoods nearby, the kind where every house was decorated and candy flowed like water. It was actually a great night at first. Everyone was friendly. The kids were loaded with treats, and one older man even gave out hot dogs and sodas instead of candy. Said he wanted to give kids something with protein. I actually respected that. But by the end of the night, things got unsettling. As we began walking back toward the car, about a 10-minute walk, the neighborhood had gone quieter. Fewer people were out now. That's when I noticed someone standing across the street. They were motionless, hidden partially in the shadows of a front yard where the porch light was off. I almost didn't spot them at all. The figure was dressed entirely in black, a hooded cloak, dark clothing, and what looked like a mask covering their face. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman, but they were watching us. I told Savannah and Jackson quietly. Stay close. There's someone across the street, don't stare. Jackson laughed, thinking it was a Halloween prank. Savannah, though, looked uneasy. For context, I had my Glock in my backpack. Savannah knew that. So when I told them to stay close, she knew I was serious. As we walked, I kept checking over my shoulder. The figure hadn't moved, but they were definitely watching. When we reached the corner, I heard footsteps, heavy ones, like boots hitting the pavement. I turned and froze. It was the same person, now clearly visible under the streetlight. They were wearing tactical boots, a black vest, and that same spandex mask completely covering their face. My stomach dropped. This wasn't some prank. He's following us. I whispered. Keep walking. Don't stop. Don't look back. Savannah's eyes widened, and Jackson just looked confused, but they both did what I said. Every few seconds, I checked behind us. The distance stayed the same, but the figure was still there. Still following. When we reached my car, the person was only about 30 feet away. That's when instinct took over. I pulled the Glock from my bag, turned, and aimed directly at them. Why are you following us? I shouted. They froze, then raised their hands slowly. The person reached up and removed their mask, revealing a woman, maybe in her 30s. Pale face. Blank stare. I'm an undercover cop, she said, her tone almost robotic. There was a report of a break-in. I thought you might be involved. Her words made no sense. She said she was watching for a break-in, yet she'd been facing away from the house. And if she was undercover, why wear tactical gear and a cloak? If you're law enforcement, I said, why the cloak? Why the full tactical setup? She just stared back, completely emotionless, and then, her expression twisted into a faint smile. If you didn't have that gun, she said softly. This night would have ended a hell of a lot different for you. Then, from between the nearby houses, 4 more people stepped out. All dressed in tactical gear. 3 men. 1 woman. No masks this time, just blank, soulless faces. I didn't hesitate. "Get in the car," I barked to Savannah and Jackson. They scrambled inside as I kept my aim steady. The woman didn't move, she just smiled as I backed into the street and sped off. As we drove away, I saw her standing there, motionless, that same smile stretched across her face while the others watched. Nobody spoke the entire ride back. The kids were terrified, and so was I. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. No message. Just a photo. It was my car, taken in the parking lot of my apartment complex. That's when I called the police. They took a report but said they couldn't do anything without a direct threat. So, I went back to that same house where I'd first seen her, just to confirm something. A man in his 40s answered the door. He said there'd been no break-in, no reports, nothing unusual that night. I thanked him and left, but deep down, I already knew. That woman had lied. None of them were cops. They were watching me for a reason. They knew my number. They knew where I lived. To this day, I don't know why we were chosen, or what they had planned. But I'm certain, if I hadn't been armed, that night would have ended very differently. This happened when I was 12. My family had decided to spend Halloween weekend at a small family resort about an hour from home, something different from the usual trick-or-treating. The resort was cozy, surrounded by dense woods, with only about 10 cabins, a lodge, and a small lake. During the day it looked peaceful, but once the sun went down, it turned unsettlingly quiet. That evening, the resort was holding a big Halloween celebration, games, prizes, and even a haunted hayride. Kids ran around in costumes, orange lights and fake spiderwebs everywhere. The smell of caramel apples and campfire smoke filled the air. I made a new friend there, a boy named Ryan, about my age, wearing a skeleton costume. We hit it off instantly, played games, and collected candy together. When it got dark, families started gathering for the hayride. A tractor pulled a wagon lined with hay bales, and workers dressed as zombies lurked along the trail to scare people. It was supposed to be light-hearted fun, and it was, at first. But halfway through the woods, I noticed something strange. While others laughed and screamed, I spotted a man standing just beyond the torchlight at the tree line. He wasn't part of the show, I could tell immediately. He wore a black jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He wasn't moving, just watching. I glanced around, but no one else seemed to notice him. When I looked back, I could feel his eyes locked directly on me. He didn't react when the wagon passed, he just stood there. The ride ended, everyone got off, and the man was gone. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was a staff member taking a break. But later that night, while Ryan and I were near the snack table, I saw him again, standing alone near the trees, partially hidden, staring straight toward us. Ryan thought maybe he was a parent or worker, but I knew better. Something about him felt wrong. He wasn't talking to anyone, not even pretending to be part of the crowd. Just watching. Around 9, the crowd began thinning. Ryan suggested we walk the trail behind the cabins for one last scare before bed. I was hesitant but agreed. We had flashlights, and the idea seemed harmless, until it wasn't. The deeper we went, the quieter it became. The resort sounds faded until all we could hear was the crunch of our shoes. We stopped near a clearing marked with a private property sign, laughing and throwing rocks, when we both heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps approaching from the darkness behind us. Ryan whispered, "Probably another kid." But I knew it wasn't. It sounded like an adult. Then, a voice cut through the dark. "Hey there, boys." A man stepped partially into the beam of my flashlight, the same man from before. Same jacket. Same hat. He smiled faintly. "You like candy? I got a bunch more back at my cabin." He held up a Reese's cup, the orange wrapper glinting in the light. Come on, I'll give you some. Don't be scared. My stomach twisted. I whispered to Ryan, run. We bolted. The man shouted something behind us, his footsteps pounding the dirt. He was chasing us. We burst out of the woods, sprinting toward the lights of the resort, screaming for help. Adults turned in confusion as we stumbled into the open field, gasping for breath. When I looked back, the path was empty. We told our parents everything. They called the staff, who searched the area. The police arrived later and took our statements, but they never found anyone. No missing vehicles. No man registered under that description. Just, gone. That night, I barely slept. Every rustle outside made me jump. The next morning, police said it might have been a trespasser. But deep down, I knew better. He'd been there long before we entered the woods. Watching. Waiting. Years later, I still think about that man. What if we hadn't run? What if we'd followed him toward that cabin? I don't think either of us would be alive today. Now, every Halloween, when I see someone standing just beyond the lights, I remember him. Because not everyone who blends into the crowd is there for fun. My name's Roger, and this happened 3 years ago on Halloween night. I was 29, living alone in a small house on the edge of town. My girlfriend was away with her family that weekend, so it was just me, handing out candy, watching horror movies, and enjoying a quiet night. The neighborhood was peaceful. By 9 o'clock, the trick-or-treaters had stopped coming. I shut off the porch light, made myself comfortable on the couch, and turned on The Conjuring 2. It was one of those chilly but calm October nights. Around 10:30, I heard a faint knock at my side door. I assumed it was some late stragglers, but when I opened it, nobody was there. The driveway was empty, the street silent except for rustling leaves. I shrugged it off as kids playing pranks. 15 minutes later, it happened again. But this time, the sound came from the back door, the one leading to my deck. That door was rarely used. My heart started pounding as I muted the TV and listened. The metal doorknob rattled softly, like someone was testing it. I crept to the kitchen and peeked through the small window beside the door. That's when I saw him. A man crouched near the entrance, wearing dark clothes and a cracked Halloween mask pushed up on his head. In his hand, he held a crowbar. He wasn't acting panicked or rushed, he was calm. Focused. Like he knew I was inside, and didn't care. I backed away quietly and dialed 911, whispering to the dispatcher. She told me to stay quiet and find a safe place. I didn't want to make noise, so I crouched near the stairs, clutching a kitchen knife, whispering updates. Then, I heard a faint pop, the sound of a window screen being pried off. He'd moved to the basement window. He's at the basement, I whispered. The dispatcher stayed on the line, telling me officers were on their way. Then came the unmistakable crack of breaking glass. He was getting in. Minutes dragged by like hours. My entire body was trembling. Then, headlights. Flashing red and blue lights washed across my walls. The man bolted from behind the house, sprinting across the yard, but he didn't get far. Police tackled him at the edge of my driveway. When they cuffed him, they found his bag. Inside were zip ties, duct tape, and a crowbar. Later, I learned he also had a handgun and several knives. He wasn't there to steal. He had a plan, something much darker. The officers told me he had a criminal record for home invasions and was linked to disappearances in nearby towns. If they'd been 5 minutes later, I might not be alive to tell this story. Now, every Halloween, when the knocks stop and the neighborhood goes quiet, I still sit awake, listening, just in case. Because for me, Halloween will never be about harmless scares again. It'll always be the night a real monster came to my door.